My name's Jay. First of all, quick introduction. I'm with a company called Bold Commerce, and we power over around 20,000 subscription brands. And so we have some really good insights into some things going on behind the scenes in subscriptions, which we're going to get into. But before I start, I want to actually settle a debate with my team. I'm curious, what are some of the most important metrics for subscription brands that you track? So just yell out a metric or put up your hand and say a metric that's really important as a subscription brand. This is for me personally. Churn? CPA, yeah. Life to LTV, yeah. AOV? MRR? Okay, those we got them all. Okay, thank you. That was just for me personally. Okay, we'll get into it now. So my talk is called The Subscription Death Curve, and obviously that's a bad thing, and we'll talk about how to stay out of it. But before let me make sure this clicker works here. Yeah, perfect. To set the stage a little bit, I want to kind of rewind maybe about 7, maybe 10 years to kind of how it started and how it's going, because I think this sets it up well. So when we think about subscriptions, 7, 10 years ago, subscriptions basically equaled subscribe and save. Subscribe and save was good because it equaled more convenience. More convenience was good because that turned into subscription conversion. Subscription conversion was awesome because that was recurring revenue. And if you did this 7, 10 years ago, you won. It was that easy. How it's going, it's quite different. Subscriptions are pretty much a payment and a shipping option. They're expected. Subscriptions are, I would say, table stakes. And when I shop, if I'm buying deodorant, coffee, cat food, whatever, if that brand doesn't have a subscription option, I'll find one that does, because it's my preferred payment method, it's my preferred way, my preferred shipping method, and it's expected. So these expected table stakes that were once amazing are now turning into what was once convenient subscriptions is now subscription fatigue, and this is probably a word a lot of you have heard. And people are canceling subscriptions by the boatloads. They're not just canceling one, they're going to their credit card and finding every subscription that they're subscribed to and canceling it. Subscription fatigue is leading to massive churn and retention issues, and these retention issues is leading to failure. So we're all doomed, right? That's why we're here at SubSummit. But it's actually quite the opposite, so don't get anyone too depressed. But when we look at the numbers, subscription brands are actually doing really well. They're outpacing the S&P 500 by close to 500%. The top 5 Fortune 500 companies embrace subscription. Actually, Paul Chambers from Subta did a really good blog post on this, analyzing the top 5 Fortune 500 companies. Subta also partnered with this report with Gartner. They're predicting by the end of 2023 that 75% of direct-to-consumer brands will offer subscriptions. So subscriptions are doing well, and they're doing well for customers, and they're doing well for brands. It's one of the transactions that brands like and customers like. Customers like it because it's 78% of customers say it's convenient, 35% like it because they realize cost savings, the curation. Brands like it because 64% of customers feel more connected to the brand, lower acquisition costs, 178% higher lifetime value. That's an average. A lot of brands, it's closer to 400%. This is an average. So things are good, but when we look behind the stats, there's still a very big problem happening in the subscription space. And that's where we get to the subscription death curve. I just call it that. It's not an official term. You can coin it this if you want. But this is what the death curve looks like. And over 80% of shops using our subscription software, if I look in the back, this is what their growth looks like. Eventually, they flatline. They're as many customers as they're acquiring a month, they're churning a month. And some of you are probably thinking in your head right now that this is what your growth looks like too. This is very, very common for brands to get stuck like this. Less than 5%, it's actually closer to 3% of our brands have a growth curve that looks like this. So I'm going to get into the differences between the two, but I just want you to think about a little bit in your head right now how you acquire customers, just to set the stage. If you're like 99% of brands out there, you pay for customers. You pay Facebook, you pay Instagram, you might pay influencers, you might pay for direct mail. That's very normal to pay to acquire customers. What I want to talk about today is why your e-commerce subscription brand needs to look a lot more like SaaS. And so in doing this, we're going to talk about how we fix this death curve. So to fix this, I took an example of a real store. I hope you get it. I'll highlight the numbers here in case some of you in the back can't see, but this is a real store doing acquiring 100 new subscribers every month with a monthly churn rate of 15%. After 30 months, they have just over 1,100 subscribers. So to fix this death curve, one approach could be to double the monthly acquisitions. Let's acquire more customers, break through that churn. So if we keep the churn the same, and if we doubled our monthly acquisitions, after 30 months, this is what it would look like. They would have 2,246 subscribers. The problem is, all they've done is they've moved the death curve up. So they're still in the exact same curve, but it's just now they're flatlining at around 2,200 customers instead of 1,100 customers. So another approach could be, well, what if we 10x our acquisition? And what if we acquired 1,000 customers a month? We keep our churn exactly the same. We just pump SEO, pay Google and Facebook and every ad source we can, and we 10x our subscribers. After 30 months, we would have over 11,000 subscribers if we 10x'd the 100 customers a month. But we're in the exact same curve. The only difference is it's flatlining at 11,000 instead of 1,100. So what we learned from this is that you cannot acquire your way to growth. You simply can't. No matter how much you increase that, you will grow, you'll do more subscribers, but you'll always hit the subscription death curve. But acquisition does matter. I put it in small in the bottom, which I'll get to in a bit. So another approach, let's decrease churn. Churn is something that's been talked a lot about today. So what if we went and we took the exact same store, doing 100 customers a month, 15% churn, and let's reduce that churn to 10%. Let's keep our acquisition the same, but let's churn 10% instead of 15%. Here's what that would look like after 30 months. We'd have 1,714 subscribers, which is pretty good, but the problem is, still looking pretty death curve-ishy. We haven't changed that. So to change it, what if we went down to 5%? Does anyone have less than 5% churn per month? That's a pretty low number. That's good. 7.5-ish is around average. 5% is pretty good. So if we went down to 5%, we'd actually have, with no new acquisitions, 2,900 subscribers in the exact same amount of time. And our curve is looking not bad, pretty good. But if we expand this out, so this is after 30 months. If we expand this out to 60 months, this is what it looks like. So all we've done after 30 more months is added another roughly 600 subscribers. So reducing churn moves the death curve more forward. Increasing acquisition moves the death curve higher up. So you can't win with either one. But what if we reduced our churn all the way down to 1%? I guarantee there's no one in this room that has 1% churn. If you do, I'd like to invest in your company. But if we had 1% churn, we'd have 8,900 subscribers, which is pretty awesome, but that's actually after 240 months. And we're still in the exact same death curve. So how do we get out of this, right? Before I move on, this slide, something that is really sobering about this is if you're acquiring 100 customers a month for 240 months, you should have 24,000 customers, but you've lost over 15,000 customers. It works out to basically 63%. 1% churn turns out to losing 63% of your customers after 240 months. I know it's a long time, but that's how much that adds up. But even at 1%, you can't get out of this growth curve. So what we learned from this is you can't save your way to growth. I think that's also good investment strategy in life. I tell my wife this all the time. But it doesn't matter how low you reduce your churn, you cannot save your way into a growth model. But it does matter in small at the bottom. So I want to do one more example with the exact same store doing 100 acquisitions a month. So we're reducing 100, going back down to 100, putting our churn back up to 15%. What if I told you there was a store that after 30 months ended up with 343,000 subscribers? And their curve looked like this, which is what everyone wants. And there was one stat that I didn't highlight in the earlier slides, and that was referral rate. So in all those previous ones, the referral rate was 0.5. I just didn't show it because I didn't want you guys to get ahead of yourself. But that means that the average person who subscribed referred 0.5 other customers. Some might refer 2, some might refer 0, but on average it was 0.5. The only difference with this store is they had a referral rate of 1.2. They only increased their customer referral rate by 0.7. Only 100 customers a month, 15% churn, which is really high. 100 customers a month, arguably could be low, doesn't matter. But the only thing they changed is that they had a referral rate of 1.2. And they ended up with 343,000. So to show the impact, just to actually just go back to that slide, like just remember, when we had 1% churn, after 240 months with a referral rate of 0.5, we only ended up with 8,900 subscribers. So just to highlight the impact of this a little bit, can someone take a guess if I had a referral rate of 1.1, same monthly acquisitions, same monthly churn, someone guess how many subscribers we'll have after the same period of time? Shout out a number. 250,000? We'd actually have only 59,000. We would drop 83% just by reducing our referred by friend rate by 0.1. It's actually mind-boggling when you think about it, and this is how compounding interest works. But you would be down 83%. What if we went down to 0.8? What do you think it would be? Shout out a number. Anyone? 12,000? If your referral rate was 0.8 and you kept everything the same, after 30 months you would have 2,700 subscribers and you would be down 99.2%. Just by going from 1.2 to 0.8 average referrals. What's interesting is nobody mentioned in the beginning of today that an important metric they track is referred by friend. Not a single person. And most brands I talk to, nobody tracks it either. So don't feel left out. So now might be a good time to talk about what viral coefficient is, because this is a metric that I care deeply about. Viral coefficient is just the number of new users an existing user refers. It's a super simple formula. It's actually easier to calculate than LTV. It's easier to calculate than churn. It's just invites sent per subscriber multiplied by the number of people that subscribe, the conversion rate. That's your viral coefficient. And the best part about it is it has a really easy magic number to remember. Every good formula has a magic number that you can remember. The magic number with this is 1. That's all you have to remember. If you have a viral coefficient less than 1, you will always hit the death curve. No matter how many customers you acquire, no matter how low your churn is, you will always hit the death curve, no matter what. If it's higher than 1, you will always break out of it, no matter how low your acquisition is, and no matter how bad your churn is, you will always break out of the death curve. It's actually the most important metric to measure. So you absolutely can refer your way to growth. The others are important. Churn matters, acquisition matters, and they're multipliers. In that example of the store that had 343,000 after 30 days, if their churn was less and if their acquisition was more, that number would be astronomically higher. So they matter, they're multipliers, but the most important number is the viral coefficient. So if anyone in this room can raise their hand and tell me their referred by friend metrics, I want to know what percentage of your customers come from referred by friend, what percentage of your customers refer a friend, and what your viral coefficient is. I will buy you a beer at the bar later, for sure. Can anyone, you know it? 0. Yeah, okay, that's easy, there we go. Yeah, I owe you a beer. Okay. I'll meet you at the lobby after. Most brands would be able to tell me their LTV like that. They could tell me their customer acquisition costs. They tell me their churn. But I've never yet encountered a subscription brand that can tell me these metrics. But they're so important. So, and this is the problem. When we survey our brands and we look at where the focus is, and by focus I mean time spent, employee, money, salary, entire departments are built around acquisition. This is where the focus is. 82% of subscription brands spend their time, their money, their effort, their employees on acquisition. 15% on churn, and some are not bad. Some have actual retention departments. Like if you go to cancel a subscription, they might have a person dedicated to retaining it and re-onboarding them, so 15% on churn. Less than 3% of money, effort, time, salary is spent on a referral strategy. Less than 3%. But when we look back at where is the impact, remember if we have a 10x increase in customer acquisition, 10x, going from 100 to 1,000 customers a month, all we did was increased to 11,000, which is good. It's 1,000%, but it's just 11,000. If we have a 15x decrease in churn, which is insane, we went from 15% to 1%. And this is actually over 240 months. This number would actually be even less, but all we did was increase it 800%. That was after 240 months. If we have just a 0.7 increase, which is 2.4x, because in all those examples, we went from 0.5 to 1.2. If that's all we did, we went from 0.5 to 1.2, we increased our subscribers 30,549%. So when we look at where the impact is, this is where you should be spending your time. If you wanted to break it down on what would make the most impact on your growth, 94.4% of your time should be spent on a referral strategy. 3.1 should be spent on churn, and on acquisition. And actually the least amount of time spent on churn, which is bizarre. And I'm not downplaying churn at all. We care about churn. We're a software company. People subscribe to our apps, and we care deeply about churn. But it's not where the focus should be. So this is where the impact is. And so obviously, how do we fix this, right? This is easy to outlay the problem. So how do we fix this? Like this, right? Right? We need lots of these. No, we don't. That was a trick question. Everyone has one of these, but they don't work. I can't think of a subscription brand that doesn't have one of these if they're a half-decent subscription brand. They all have a give 10, get 10, share a link, get 10% off. Everyone has one. But none of them are growing virally, like in the examples. So I want to, before I go any further to talk about how to solve it, talk about a company, Clubhouse, which probably a lot of you know. If you don't, they were a audio app that you can listen to conversations. They had an interesting strategy. If anyone joined, you would have seen a screen like this. You would have tried to sign up for it, but you wouldn't have been able to join. You would have had to have an invite. If you eventually did get in, you would have seen a screen like this. It would say, great, you're in. You have 5 invites. I joined Clubhouse, and I don't know if Chris George is in here, but actually Chris George was one of the people I invited. I remember reaching out to Chris. I texted him. I was like, because he wanted to get an invite to Clubhouse, and I said, Chris, like, I only have 5. Like, are you going to use it? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna use it. And we actually ended up doing a Clubhouse together. But I pre-qualified him. I made sure that he was actually going to use it. He felt kind of indebted to me because I gave him the invite, so he's for sure going to use it because I only had 5 invites. And so what this does is it does 3 really important things. So when you think about your referral strategy, there's 3 things it absolutely needs that none of those ones in the previous slide with all those pop-ups, none of them had. It needs scarcity. Scarcity is critical. If it doesn't have scarcity, it's like if it's just give 10, get 10, share a link with a friend, get 10% off, there's no scarcity. I don't feel obligated to share it. This is an absolute must. It needs to have scarcity. It needs to have, I put leverage social proof, it needs to have intimate social proof. There is no better social proof than your best friend texting you saying, hey, you should really try this skincare. I've got 3 invites that I can give 2 months free. Like, I know you got dry skin. Are you interested in it? There's no better social proof than a friend texting you about that. I don't know if that's the best example, the skincare, but I should switch that to coffee or something else. But for the skincare companies, yeah. Okay, there we go. And lastly, it needs to be incredibly valuable. So almost every referral strategy that when I sign up to like every subscription I can. Sometimes they're 15%, sometimes they're $20, but they need to be like 2 months free. If you can give 3 months free, do it. At bare minimum, a month free. They need to be really, really valuable and limited. So you would be, and remember, you only need just to be over 1. You don't need a customer to refer 10. You saw what happened when it was 1.2. So if you gave every subscriber 3 unique coupon codes, links, however you want to do it, to invite 3 people to get a month free, what you're doing is you're making your customers identify the ideal customer profile for you. So if I'm a coffee connoisseur, I subscribe to coffee, I'm going to go to my friend who I also know is a coffee connoisseur and say, I know you love coffee. I got 3 of these. You get a month free. So I've basically just got the perfect customer for the subscription brand who's going to have a higher LTV, who's going to be more likely to refer their friends. It's the customer they exactly want, and I'm just empowering my customers to find them. Versus if I just shared a link on Facebook, just signed up for a great subscription, here's 10% off for anyone. Like, I'm not finding any unique customers for them. So basically, summing this up, to me, the perfect scenario looks a lot like Clubhouse's growth model, and that's if I signed up for a subscription and there was 3 very high value offers that I could give, that would convert drastically higher, and you only need the average to be over 1. So some customers will use all 3. Some customers will use 0. It's important to measure it, but noting that giving 10 of these offers won't necessarily increase it. So scarcity is really, really important. It's better to have a lot of people maxing out at 3 than give 10 or give 100. Here's 100 links for a month off. Then you lose the scarcity. You have to keep all 3 of these things in there. So it comes down to this, which is customer-led growth, and it's really the only way to grow. And so these are just like some highlights to remember. I think your number 1 source needs to be referred by friend. You need to know where you stand today. You need to measure it so you can grow it. It has to be exclusive. It has to be high value. Your customer. You know your cost of goods. You know how much you can afford to give. Give as much as you can to make it very valuable for that person you're sharing it with. It really is the healthiest form of acquisition. It doesn't matter. There's nothing that beats it. Limited invites are better, and you need to track it, monitor it, and grow it. Which leads me to my second last slide. This is just such an important thing to remember, that a subscriber is not a customer. A subscriber is a lead. And so when you think in those terms, every time you have a subscriber, you have an opportunity for leads. They have friends, but you need to empower them. And like 99% of subscription brands are not properly empowering their leads to get them more customers. So when you think of them as leads, empowering them is one thing. You need to educate them. I could go on a rant about that. But educate them on your product, your mission, your purpose, your values, why your company exists. Once they've subscribed, the jury's still out if they're bought in. One of my favorite examples is with the water company, Charity Water. If you subscribe to Charity Water, it is a subscription. You pay monthly, but it's a donation. They build wells around the world to give water to countries that need it. But if you subscribe as a donation, on the thank you page is a video from the CEO talking about Charity Water and the impact it's making, and how many people now have clean water because of it, which kind of makes no sense. Like, I just paid. I just agreed that, yeah, I'm going to give you $40 a month. Why do I need to see this video? But what Charity Water knows is that their job is to arm me with the knowledge. So they need to, yes, I just purchased it, but they need to continually reinforce me with how good of a company this is, the impact they're making. So when someone subscribes to your brand, you need to arm them with the knowledge. Because if you have a tool, a perfect tool where you have, the 3 invite, 3 for 3 months kind of thing, but you don't arm them with the knowledge of how good your subscription is, how good your company is, the impact you're making on the environment, all the charities you work with, everything like that. If you don't arm them with that, they're not going to be motivated to use these. So they need the knowledge and they need the tools. They need both. And so this comes down to my last thing, which I'd like to actually challenge everyone watching to, for a year, we think about North Star metrics like everyone that was why I asked in the beginning, what are important metrics? I heard churn, I heard customer acquisition costs, I heard LTV, I heard retention, I heard CPA, I heard all kinds of things, but I didn't hear this. And I would love to challenge you to think about this as a North Star metric for, honestly, forever, but at least for a year. So there's 3 aspects to this, is percentage of sales that come by referred by friend, percentage of customers that refer, and lastly, the absolute most important is your viral coefficient. So if you don't know these numbers today, the first job is to figure them out. And you can survey your customers when they subscribe. You can have a, how did you hear about us? You could send out an email right now. Get your benchmark. And it doesn't matter what it is. If it's only 12% of your customers are come by referred by friend, that's okay. Make your goal for next month 13%. At least know where you are. But if you come to SubSummit next year, and I bump into you in the hall, I'd love to ask someone these questions and they'd be able to rattle them off. Know what percentage of customers actually refer, and then lastly, viral coefficient. So these are the numbers, the North Star metrics that can drastically move the needle of your growth. So that's my challenge to you guys. That's my last slide, and if anyone has, I guess, questions, I'm not sure the flow here. Feel free to ask.
Oh, you know what? I saw your hand go up first, but I'm right over here, so.